Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for the chance that given for me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Hamza, Class A 2018. Today, I would like to present my research proposal with the title The Influence of Using Think-Share Technique to Improving Students' Reading Comprehension in Narrative Text at the 8th grade student of junior high school. Okay, in this research proposal, there are three main chapters. The first chapter is Introduction, chapter 2 is Reviewing Literature, and the last chapter is talking about research methodology. Okay, we talking about chapter 1, Introduction. This chapter presents the background of the study, the research question of the study, problem identification, research focus, research objective, and research benefit. Okay. A. Background. As the compulsory subject in learning English, there are 4 language skills that should be mastered by students. They are reading, speaking, writing, and listening. The first skill should be taught in order to help the students communicate in English. Among the 4 language skills, reading is one of the 4 primary skills that should be mastered, according to Nerin 2020. According to Brown 2004, he said that in foreign language learning, reading is likewise a skill that teachers simply expect learning to acquire. Through the reading, learners get new ideas, obtain needed information, look for support ideas for their statement, and widen their interests. And according to Polston 1976, said that reading is the most important skill of all for most students of English throughout the world. It means that they are not only expected to understand the structure, but also to comprehend the meaning of the text. So, from the definition above, we can conclude that reading is one of the efforts to get some information from the text, not only expect to understand the structure, but also the meaning of the text. Okay, the student lack of understanding reading lesson is mainly caused by an inappropriate teaching method when the teacher attempts to explain the reading materials. Not only that, students are less achieved in learning process, according to O'Kale, Chine, and Brain, 2003, Van Broek, 1990. One source of reading comprehension problem concerns the ability to generate inference. Inference allows the reader to construct meaningful connections between text elements and relevant background knowledge, and therefore they are crucial to comprehension. For the problem above, it's important to find an appropriate strategy in teaching reading. According to Mealy and Kmot in Iskandar Wasit and Sunderland 2008, strategy is a set of useful tools as well as types which involve individuals. Many students still find difficulties and problems in comprehending the text, especially their lack of vocabulary, structure, and process of understanding main ideas in the text. The difficulties caused by several factors such as background knowledge, interest, attitude, and teachers. It already known that suitable technique and strategy help both teachers and learners in teaching learning process. Therefore, the researcher offers to use Think-Share technique in improving students' reading skill. According to Crash 2007, Think-Share technique is a comprehensive teaching strategy that includes there are 3 components. There is time for think, time for finding, and time for sharing. After receive a text from the teachers, they must think individually, then think and share with their peers. And the next step, they should share to the peers while listening to the explanation from the other students. Every student should be comprehend the text because each of them have obligation to explain it to the other students. So it is very important to students to start construction their ideas in their discussion in order to find out they already know and what they should be known. There are some research that has been done before, titled Improving Students' Reading Skill by Using Team Pressure TPS, a classroom action research at the first grade of Junior High School 8 Surakarta in academic year 2011 and 2012, and Think Pressure Technique to improve students' reading comprehension elementary grade of Senior High School Negeri Sawah, but in this research there is no using narrative text in second grade in Senior High School. From the research that has been done above, it can be formulated that research will be carried out the researcher that is improving students' reading skill using think pressure at this second grade in junior high school. Okay, B. Problem identification. Based on the background, the problem identification. The problem of the research will be formulated as follows. First, teacher use only the teacher-centered method. The second is low motivation to learn reading text. The third is students had difficulties in understanding the text. And the last is student lack of vocabulary. Let's just focus. Based on the problem identification, the writer limits the focus of the research on the influence of using think pressure technique on improving students' reading comprehension in narrative text at the 8th grade students junior high school. The research objective. In the research objective, the research objective of the research are follow. First, how much students score pre-test. Second, how much students score post-test. And the last is there is influence using in team pressure technique to improving students' reading comprehension in narrative text. And the last, research benefit. This research is expected to have some advantages in the learning, teaching, and learning process as present below. First, for the English teacher, the findings of the research are expected to provide information for an achieved learning technique called think pressure to improve the students' reading comprehension. The second, for the students, the findings of the research are expected to offer interesting and various learning experience, so they will be participate in the reading class more active. Third, for the school, it is expected that think pressure technique can become an interesting technique and simulate the students. It can be support the motivate other teachers to make new ways in teaching learning process so that learning activity will be no monotonous. And the fourth, for other researchers, the findings of the study can be one of the meaningful of useful reference which can guide to conduct research studies in relation on the English teaching. Okay, chapter 2, literature review. This chapter deals with the previous related studies, theoretical framework, and hypothesis. Okay, previous related studies. First, did Rina Sukamoto 2017 in his research entitled Investigating the Influence of Think Pressure Approach Toward Students' Reading Achievement. Karim and Yanti Ismayanti 2016 in the research entitled The Effect of Using Think Pressure Technique to Develop Students' Reading Skill at 8th grade of Junior High School to Kota Jambi. And the third, Elva Utami 2018 in her research entitled The Effect of Think Pressure Strategy and Students' Reading Motivation Towards Students' Reading Comprehension at the second semester students of Law Faculty University of Dr. Hazairin S. Habengkulu. And the fourth, Sri Ariski Triositasari and Dwi Raraswati 2021. In their research entitled The Influence of Think Pressure Technique TPS to Teach Reading Comprehension to 10th grade students. And the last, Eukarya Okudilikuwu 2019. In her research entitled Effects of Students' Teams Achievement Division of Think Pressure on Students' Achievement in Learning Comprehension. Okay, the difference with my research and the research before. The first is different place and object. The second is the different purpose and research objective. And the last is using narrative text as the material in this research. And the similarities, the first is using quasi-experimental design, using junior high school as the subject, and the last is the purpose of the research is to find the influence of using think pressure. Theoretical framework. The first, concept of reading. In language learning, in terms of English, there are 4 skills that should be mastered in language learning. That is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And reading is one of the important skills that should be mastered. A. Definition of reading. Reading is one of the important skills that which are needed by the students from elementary school up to university. According to Gray in Walter Reading, reading is an interactive process. It is dynamic interaction between the writer and reader, in which the reader creates meaning from the text by activating his knowledge and extending it with the new information supplied by the text. In other words, reading concentrates on the text-reader interaction. Another explanation from Paulson and Barder state that reading is the individual activity to get information excellent and unless there are contextual contents on the teaching situation. Second, concept of reading aspect. Superman said that there are several aspects of reading comprehension skill that should be mastered by readers to comprehend the text. The first is main idea, specific information, reference, interference, and vocabulary. First, main idea. Main idea is important information that tells more about the overall idea of paragraph or section of the text. Finding the main idea of paragraph is one of the most important reading comprehension skill. The second, specific information, supporting sentence. Specific information or supporting sentence develop the topic sentence by giving definition, example, fact, comparison, analogy, cause, effect, statistic, and quotation. The third is reference. Reference is word or phrase either before or after the reference in reading material. They are used to avoid unnecessary repetition of word phrase. It can be give the reader signal to find the meaning of the word in the text. And the fourth, interference. Interference is an educational guessing or prediction about something unknown based on the available fact and information. And the last is vocabulary. Vocabulary is the stock of word used by the people or even person. Concerning with those statement, indeed, vocabulary is fundamental for everyone who wants to speak or produce utterance for reading. Concept of teaching reading. The teaching reading is a process of teaching on which the readers show and help someone or students to learn how to read well in English to improve students' awareness or reading as a skill. Brown said that teaching is guiding and facilitation, reading enabling the learners to learn, and setting and conditional for learning. In teaching reading, there are 6 principles according to Harmer. The 6 principles are: first, suggest students to read as often and as much as possible. Our knowledge will increase if much new information in mind. The second, students need to communicate the situation. And the third, instruct students to respond to the concept of the text. The fourth, prediction is a major factor in reading. And the five, match the text up to the topic. And the last is good teacher exploit reading to the full. Furthermore, Al Yusuf said that in teaching reading, contemporary reading tests and like the traditional materials involve the 3 phase: pre, while, and post-reading stage. Pre-reading, it helps the activating the relevant schema. For example, teachers can ask the students questions that arouse their interest and achieve the students' background knowledge while preparing the text. The second, while reading. The aim of the while reading stage or interactive process is to develop students' ability in tracking text by developing their linguistic and schematic knowledge. The third, post-reading includes activity which enhance learning comprehension using matching exercise, closing exercise, cut-off sentence, and comprehension question. Based on the statement above, we can conclude that in teaching reading, teachers should have a plan in stage of teaching reading which can make easier in teaching reading process. The students will be more directional in their learning, include pre-test reading, while reading, and post-reading. Fourth problem in teaching reading. Teaching reading in the classroom is not easy because there are some problems that must be faced the teacher. There are 4 factors that are most often responsible for people to comprehend reading material. The first is classroom management. There are some teachers that cannot manage their class in the teaching learning process. There are some factors that can be comfort condition, time, students, or even teacher. It is caused by students is not active in learning process. The second is knowledge. Knowledge is important factor in teaching reading. The teachers must have a lot of background knowledge. It is essential in comprehension without an appreciation of the meaning of the words. It can be no comprehension moving beyond the meaning of the individual's words. The mind's knowledge is also considered crucial for the comprehension. The third, vocabulary difficulties. An excessive vocabulary burden forces the reader to rely on the dictionary or bypass many important words. When any appreciable number of words is left out, understanding must suffer. And the last is lack of pupil interest. It is difficult to some teacher, but the most of disciplined readers to concentrate on the material they dislike or unrelated to their personal interest. Without tough attention to content comprehension, some material will be underestimated. Lack of interest cause of the mind of wander and corrects a dislike for the task and reduce consciousness effort. The 5 concepts of team pressure technique. Team pressure technique is one comparative learning technique that helps students give meaning of the information they receive. In addition, Kagan said that team pressure technique is one of the techniques that the students think to themselves on the topic provided by the teacher. They pair up with the other students to discuss it, then they share thoughts with the class. This technique is an effective way to exchange the discourse pattern in classroom. It changes the assumption that all recitation discussion needs to be held in the whole group settings, and it has built in the procedure for giving students more time to think and to respond and to help each other. Based on the explanation above, it can be concluded that team pressure is kind of cooperative learning technique. For the teaching and learning process, it can be used to asking students to work individually to think and answer the two questions posed by the teacher. After that, working pairing to discussing the answer and finally share what they have been thinking about with the whole class. Procedure of the teaching reading using think pressure technique. The whole patterns of think pressure technique are divided into three steps, which are think, pairing, and sharing. The steps are can be seen as follow. First step is thinking. The teacher gives a text and question associated with the lesson in the book and asks students to spend a minute to think alone about the answer of the text. Students read the text about the question they in their book, and they need to be taught that talking not part of thinking time. The second step is pairing. The teacher asks students to pair to discuss what they have been thinking about their read. Interaction during this period can be sharing answer if question has been posed or sharing ideas if a specific issue was in the identified. Usually, the teacher allows no more than 5 minutes for pairing. And C, the last step is sharing. In this final step, the teacher asks the pairs to share what they have been talking about with whole class. And the last hypothesis, based on the theoretical assumption, the research formulated the hypothesis as follows. Hanol, team pressure technique does not give influence to improving students' reading comprehension in narrative text at the 8th grade students junior high school. Hasa to think pressure technique gives influence to improve students' reading comprehension in narrative text at the 8th grade students of junior high school. Chapter 3, Research Methodology. This research dealt with the description of the research method, place, and time of the research population and sampling, research instrument, technique of collecting the data, procedure of collecting the data, and data analysis. The first, research type and design. In this research, the writer used quantitative research. According to Ari, experimental design is the general plan of the carry out of study with an active independent variables. The design is important because it determines the student's internal validity, which is the ability to reach valid conclusion about the effect of the experimental treatment on the given variable. It means that experimental design is a research design that is used to find the influence of one variable to another. The writer used quasi-experimental design research. Quasi-experimental design research that includes assignments but not random assignment or participant to the group. This is because the experimental cannot artificially create groups for the experimental. It means that we do not have the opportunity for random assignment of students to special groups in different conditions because it would disrupt the classroom learning. In this research, the writer selected two classes, first class as a control class and the second class as experimental class. The researchers used pretest and post-test group design. See population and sample. Population, according to Ari, the large group about which the generalization is made is called a population. A population is defined as all members of any well-defined class of people, events, or objects. It means that the population is group of interest to the writer, the groups to which she or he will like the result of the study be generalized. Second, sample. Sample is part of amount of characteristics which have by population. It means that sample is a little of population according to Franke. A sample is any part of a population of individual from whom information is obtained. It may for variety of reasons be different from sample originally said. It can be concluded that sample is a part of population. The sample of this research was two classes of the second semester of the 7th grade, one class of the experimental class, and while the another one is as the control class. Sampling technique. In this research, the writer used cluster random sampling technique in choosing the sample. Cluster random sampling is similar to simple random sampling, except that groups rather than individuals are randomly selected. The sampling unit is group rather than an individual. The operational definition of variable. Variable is one characteristic or attribute of an individual or an organization that writer can measure or observe and variable among individuals or organization study. There are two variables in this research, namely independent variable and dependent variable. An independent variable is variable selected by the researchers to determine their effect on the relationship with the independent variable. The dependent variable is observed to determine what effect. In this research, there are two variables. Their independent variable is think pressure and dependent variable is students' reading comprehension in narrative text. Research procedure. There were three steps in research procedure. There are planning. Planning. Determining the subject. The writer determined the subject. In the case of the writer chose 7th grade of sampai 2 Campalagian Besar Center as the subject of the research. Experimental class B determined the instrument of the research. The writer determined instruments that were taught to students. The instruments was test descriptive narrative text. The students got the same instrument for both classes in the same topic. C. Trying of the text. Tryout was conducted by identifying for how accurate and effective the text before it was used to collect the data of research and used to identify whether the test could be administered or not. The conducting pretest. The writer prepared the pretest and was given to students. The pretest was given on this question, then were searched after validity. He determined the material to be taught. The writer gave the treatment in the three meetings. In the treatment, the writer as the teacher taught the students by giving think pressure. If preparing the post-test, the post-test conducted after treatment. By giving the post-test, the writer now the students improve their reading comprehension or not. F. Research instrument. In this research, the writer used the test as the instrument of to collect data. The form of the test was multiple choice with 4 options. The test was used to know students' reading skill in narrative text. And data analysis and technique. In collecting the writer used tryout tests to determine the tests for the pre-test and post-test. To now the students reading comprehension on this narrative text for experimental class and control class. And the post-tests were done after the students in the experience and the control class have been given the treatment. It was done to now the students reading comprehension on narrative text after where students also were asked to answer reading comprehension tests from multiple choice questions about the narrative text based on the provided topic that consists of 22 total items. I think that's all for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.